The image you see in front of you is that of Marco Rubio. He was on the George Stephanopoulos show on ABC this Sunday morning. Marco Rubio is a first-term senator, obviously from the state of Florida, running for president. Marco Rubio, is a huge flip-flopper. I'm going to play this segment where some of the things that he's done within his short term have been questioned, and he has flip-flopped on them. The first one has to do with illegal immigration. Now you have to pay very close attention to what Mr. Rubio says versus what he actually supported when he was in the Florida State Assembly.
You're getting hit pretty hard by Ted Cruz on the issue of immigration, taking on your support of that bipartisan Gang of Eight compromise in the Senate. And this week a new issue cropped up, an article in the Daily Beast. And here's the headline. It says, Marco Rubio in 2004, cheap college for undocumented immigrants. They're talking about in the Florida State House, you co-sponsored legislation to provide in-state tuition for undocumented immigrants. What was your thinking then, and do you stand behind that position now?
Now, be very careful, because the bill that they were pushing for was to provide tuition, cheap tuition, for in-state, undocumented, i.e. illegal aliens. Now, watch the answer that Marco Rubio gives.
Well, first of all, a lot of these attacks are exaggerated. I don't support amnesty. I think there has to be real consequences for violating our laws. I continue to support and have supported and sponsored the largest border surge in American history, 20,000 new border agents, 700 miles of fencing and walls, a mandatory e-verify system, entry-exit tracking system to prevent visa overstays. On the bill you talked about, it was a very narrowly drafted bill. You had to have a certain GPA, you had to live in the U.S. a long time, you had to graduate from a Florida high school. It was very narrowly tailored to high-performing students who found themselves in a situation where they were brought here by their parents when they were 5, didn't even speak another language except English, and therefore couldn't attend college because they were being charged like if they were from out of state. They still had to pay for college, but they paid for what people paid when they lived in Florida.
So you stand behind...
See, so now that's not true, because he said they still had to pay for college. The bill that he was sponsoring, and which, by the way, passed, was to provide tuition for undocumented illegal aliens. Now, I don't care what the qualifications were, he was still supporting educating illegal aliens. And I'm not against that, but he's flip-flopping. First he's saying that illegal aliens shouldn't get any kind of support. He's against illegal aliens, and with all these things that he wants to put in place to stop illegal aliens from being any type of a productive productive person in the United States, where before he was proposing helping illegal aliens to become productive people in the United States. But let's continue.
Graduates of Florida. Yeah, of a narrowly tailored bill like that, absolutely. In fact, the Florida legislature came back years later, after I had left the legislature, and passed it with vast majorities of Republicans voting for it, and a Republican governor signed it. That's different, but we didn't legalize anybody. That's the issue here. And the truth is, when it comes to Ted, he has changed his position on immigration all over the place. I mean, he used to be against birthright citizenship. He used to be for birthright citizenship. Now he says he's against it. He used to be for legalizing people that were here illegally. Now he says he's against it. He used to be for 200% increases in green cards, doubling them. Now he says he wants none. And he said he used to be for a 500% increase in guest workers. And now he says he wants 0. So this is not consistency. This is calculation as he's changed this position on these issues as we get closer to election days.
You've also engaged in the national security debate with Mr. Cruz, saying the USA Freedom Act reforming America's surveillance capabilities that he supported is going to make it harder to protect the homeland. Here's what you said this week.
If ISIS had lobbyists in Washington, they would have spent millions to support the anti-intelligence law that was just passed with the help of some Republicans now running for president.
That language about lobbyists for ISIS is pretty tough, but the bill was also supported by Iowa Senator Charles Grassley, New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte, and almost 24 members of Congress who support you. Are they all in league with lobbyists for ISIS?
No, but the name for two things. The names you just mentioned supported it not because they thought it was a good idea, but because if nothing passed, it would have expired. And second, they're not running for president. We're running for commander-in-chief here. And no, we should not have a commander-in-chief that wants to weaken our intelligence programs. But my quarrel with Ted on these issues of national security are not limited just to the intelligence bill. If it was just that, you can have an honest disagreement. We are already cutting military spending by
lobbyists for ISIS?
Absolutely. There is no doubt that groups like ISIS will benefit from us having a diminished intelligence capacity. We are now at a moment in this country where we don't just need to keep the authorities we already have, we need to add to these programs. Look at what happened in Philadelphia on Friday.
See, now that is conflating, because the situation that occurred on Friday in Philadelphia was of a man who ambushed a police officer, and when they got the guy into the police station and questioned him, he made statements in support of ISIS, etc. But if Mr. Rubio had done his homework, he would have found out that this guy had like severe mental issues, and that he had been documented as speaking to himself, hearing voices, etc. So as far as this being a terrorist attack, no. This was some lunatic who basically had lost his mind, who happened to have fired on a police officer. This was not some terrorist, quote-unquote, attack, but the attack of a mentally unstable person.
It was a terrorist attack. The White House refuses to call it a terrorist attack.
It wasn't.
The attacker says, I did this for ISIS. I've been inspired by ISIS. And we have a White House that refuses to acknowledge it as a terror attack. It was a terror attack. And this is the kind of threat we now face in this country. We need additional tools for intelligence. And my last point I want to make about this, I never believed Edward Snowden was a good public servant, the way Ted Cruz once said that he had done a public service for America. Edward Snowden is a traitor. He took our intelligence information and gave it to the Chinese and gave it to the Russians. We cannot afford to have a commander-in-chief who thinks people like Edward Snowden are doing a good public service.
President,
the jury's out on that one, because Edward Snowden blew the whistle. Now, I honestly believe if they weren't going to go after him, he would have never left the country. But once he blew the whistle on the intelligence community and what they were doing to us, he had to get out of Dodge, because he was either going to be arrested in jail for the rest of his life for letting the people know what was going on, or he was going to get snuffed.
Obama made a brand new bid for background checks on gun sales this week, and one of your recent ads said that President Obama's plan would take away our guns. The president took on that argument this week. Take a look.
Now this is a good one, because everybody's screaming about Obama taking away guns. Obama has said nothing about taking away guns, but these guys keep repeating this Obama wants to grab your guns bullshit, and they keep repeating it, so that people basically just believe what they're repeating. But all Obama wants to do is expand background checks, so that if you can get a gun by going to a Gander Mountain or whatever, then you should have to undergo the same process when you go to a gun show. And basically, Stephanopoulos should have called him on all of the deaths that are perpetrated by handguns. If you know the facts, you know that the majority of deaths by gun in this country are suicides. And suicides are normally done by people who have mental issues. Obama is looking to increase the amount of money designed to go for mental health care, which if a person is deemed to be unstable, they should not have the ability to purchase a firearm until they have their situation resolved in a positive manner. But let's continue with the video.
The conversation has to be based on facts and truth and what we're actually proposing, not some imaginary fiction in which Obama's trying to take away your guns.
Fact checkers have called you out on that as well. Where has the president called proposals for taking away guns? He has not done that.
Well, his proposal for everything is to infringe on the Second Amendment. There was a terrorist attack in San Bernardino. Before even the facts are known, he immediately jumps and says, we need gun control.
But take
this
away our guns?
Resorts to. Well, if he could, he would. Obviously.
See, there you go. If he could, he would. How do you know that? He's never said that. But you guys always want to try to inflict on him stuff that you want your supporters to believe so that they can act against him. If he could, he would. No, that's not true. He's said and done nothing that indicates that he wants to take people's guns away. He wants to restrict the ability to obtain weapons by people who should not get them, but he has not done anything that would stop a law-abiding citizen from obtaining a weapon.
He knows he's constrained by the Second Amendment, so what he tries to do is chip away at it every chance he gets.
So you can see
and he wants this debate to be about George, if he could, he would. And let me tell you what he's trying to do. He is trying to keep guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens by continuing to put new restrictions on our gun rights. Let me give you an example. Barack Obama says he wants this debate to be about fact and truth. Good. Let's have it about fact and truth. Here's the fact and here's the truth. None of the attacks that he is talking about, none of these horrible, horrifying tragedies that have occurred that he cites as the rationale for these new measures that he's taking, not a single one of them would have been prevented by anything he's proposing. And the reason why is because killers and criminals do not care what the gun laws are. They are not going to go to someone that conducts background checks. They will continue to get their guns the way they have always gotten their guns, from the black market, stolen guns, etc. So this is absurd. The only people that are going to follow this law are law-abiding people. This is nothing but an effort from the left to continue to chip away at the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Americans.
Finally, Senator, we had this news overnight that Sean Penn, the actor, interviewed the Mexican drug leader El Chapo a few months back and had several follow-ups interviews. The Mexican authorities are now investigating. Do you have any problem with what he did?
Yeah, I'm not. Look, I think Sean Penn is not someone I spent a lot of time thinking about. I didn't even know he was still around.
He doesn't even know who Sean Penn is. Sean Penn's been making movies all over the place. So now he's going to dance around and answer, okay, because he's not familiar with who Sean Penn is. This guy is hilarious.
I think he made movies a long time ago or something. He interviewed El Chapo. We, I guess, used the interview that he had in order to find him. That the Mexicans did. That's fantastic. I hope they extradite El Chapo to the United States. And, you know, if one of these American actors who have benefited from the greatness of this country, who have made money from our free enterprise system, want to go fawn all over a criminal and a drug trafficker in their interviews, they have a constitutional right to do it. I find it grotesque.
He didn't know who, I swear, he didn't know who Sean Penn was, so he pulled an answer out of his ass.
Senator Rubio, thanks for joining us this morning.
Wild. And this guy's running for president, and the establishment loves this guy. Again, I don't know whether, care whether you like Obama or not, but this guy is less qualified to run for president than Obama was when he ran. So, I don't know. Marco Rubio, not ready for prime time.